Welcome back to Kairyu Rider, because when we moved out of Tokyo, we found him. Welcome back. You have to have seen this video for this one to make sense, but on the rear, over 2 weeks, it went from 250 down to 240, which is very normal for a real tubeless wheel. So rear wheel Outex, 100%. Front wheel Outex, we're gonna switch to the 3M 4200 with a bit of a special twist because I think I know what goes wrong with most people doing it. You do not have to remove the calipers on this bike to get the front wheel out. See how the adhesive snuck in here? That means that was where one of the leaks was because the air pushed it through. Some of you are wondering if I'm scratching my rim to hell. I don't particularly care. And also, I'm gonna sand it really, really good to make sure the 3M bonds. Now to clean it up a bit, wire brush. The wooden handle's working better. I've gotten most of it, now it's just kind of gooping around, so I'm going to use some nail polish remover. Working, but not as much as I need it to, so I'm going to keep scraping a bit more. Now it should be enough chunks off that I can clean it. I'm sure if you had rubbing alcohol, that would work. Some people say kerosene. This is what I have. And by have, I mean have taken. So we have a clean, slightly scratched rim, 40 grit. Power. Start at the hole, finish at the hole. Just enough to see the paint coming undone. Once around the edge on each side, that's where it needs to be airtight. Finally, one time over with a dry paper towel, one more time with rubbing alcohol. So the nail polish remover that I was using, it worked, but it's expired, so the whole thing's slimy. So I have this good one from my wife and pure acetone, which suddenly we own. So I'm gonna use acetone to clean the wheel proper. I'm gonna put electrical tape around the edges because I don't want it to come over the bead. Yellow electrical tape because I have yellow, and because it will not match the color of the adhesive. So it'll just be very obvious where it is. Start at the hole, finish at the hole. If you saw earlier in the video, I got sealant on the edge of the rim, which is not good for the tire holding air. So just to be safe, I guess the rim makes a pretty good guide for a straight piece of tape. Neither one's perfectly straight, but this one is further in, and I like that position better, so I'm going to use the rim guide again. You will need to get a valve that you trust, made of stainless is what I recommend. There are some cool curved aluminum ones if you can make them fit. This is the one from Outex that I originally used. It's working on the rear. I've used cheap knockoff stainless valves that have snapped in my hand. I don't recommend using parts that break in your hand. Find the hole as it keeps walking away. The rubber is the only part of this that could possibly fail other than the internal valve, which is replaceable. So I'm gonna do what many others have, and I'm gonna seal it in place. Before we do anything else, I'm gonna clean, because there's a little bit of wind. I don't want any of this flying up and sticking to the adhesive. I'm going to use the acetone, wipe it one more time. This is just to get any fingerprints off, any oil, any everything. So I got these. These are 9mm wide aluminum stickers. The reason is, for the same reason Outex puts stickers on, is so that you can rotate the spoke heads when you're tightening the spokes. Now some people put the silicone straight on. Vibration could eventually damage the sealant. I keep saying silicone, it's not silicone. Silicone doesn't work well with metal apparently. If you do go off-road, you will be more likely to need to tighten a spoke. Having something that lets the spoke twist will prevent you from damaging the seal. This may work, this may not. If it works, great. If it doesn't work, you will see me fixing this wheel yet again in a third part video. But from this point on, remember that these are all safety modifications as well. Anything you do to your own bike is your own problem, but I'm gonna start stickering up my bike. And the reason I picked aluminum is because the adhesive sticks well to metal. These are aluminum coated stickers, so it should still stick well enough. Not that it's sticking well enough to hold, but it's sticking well enough to let the seal build up, and then this will break away from the seal. And we're just covering, if you see the little circle here, we're just covering that much so that there's no sealant inside. So again, we can twist and slightly come off without damaging the sealant. And being aluminum-based stickers, they do curve quite nicely to the shape of the spoke head. I will wipe the whole thing one more time with acetone while trying not to wipe the stickers. These stickers are not designed for this. Pretty much everything I'm doing is not designed for this, except for the Outex valve is designed to be a valve. And at this point, I will say, what happens if it doesn't work? If it doesn't work, I'll have to cut it out, get these stickers off and fix it. But if the whole thing doesn't work, it's either buy a proper wheel that is tubeless, or Takasago is made in Japan, not far from where I am. So I can get a rim made for tubeless, where you just have to seal it and not worry about the safety bead. But if I am changing wheels, it begs the question, is a KTM 890 SMT a better dirt road bike, or is a KTM 890 ADV a better street bike? Or do we acknowledge that the GS split the difference with a 1917 setup, and people absolutely love that bike? Not that I'm trying to slam Outex, but these, granted not made for this like theirs were, these stick very nicely to the shape of the spoke head. The Outex ones were coming off almost immediately. And I have seen some people show that when you tighten the spokes on an Outex system, it still twists the tape. That's hearsay. I'm again not trying to bash the company. And I'm still very happy with the Outex on my rear wheel. Before I get into it, everything is linked in the description below. This video, however, I can't get this 3M in Japan. It's not sold here officially. So what I did was I had my mom on her Amazon USA account buy it and ship it here. So this video is sponsored by my mom. And remember, every single thing I'm going to do from here on will ruin your wheel. I've already pretty much done that, but at your own risk. Again, wheels are safety implements. But I've got enough here that I can be quite liberal with it. I've got 2 tubes. I thought I ordered 1, but it was 2, which is fine. Too much is better than not enough because it takes weeks to get it again for me. I'm going to wash my hands. I've got gloves ready to go, and I'm going to wipe the wheel one more time, then we will get to it. When using this, this is the 24-hour dry kind. The reason I didn't use the 5000, that's a forever seal. When you see people like boat workers trying to take it off, they're using grinders and it's hours and you will ruin your wheel. I think this is better because this is still insanely difficult to take off. And 3M also recommends this to be the better choice. Also, 3M told me that this can actually seal to itself. I keep saying silicone. Silicone does not bond to dried silicone. This, however, does bond to itself if you sand the hardened bit that's left over. And this can be removed with a lot of effort, more than I put on this morning, but I'm going to trust all that. And this is a point where using gloves, this can have a lot of reactions with your skin, and you should not do this indoors. The fumes will be indoors. I mean, the majority of this writing is all warnings, not just because Americans need to be warned not to put bags over their heads. This will make sure that nothing gets inside. I can always cut that out later. Hole. We have a hole. And get that off the screwdriver as quick as possible because I like this screwdriver. A quick clean of the screwdriver. Now we begin. So I got the white kind because it's cheaper, but this is inside the wheel. So you can say you prefer black. Doesn't actually make a difference. No one's going to see it. Sealing inside the cracks is most important. Some people only go that far to seal the actual spoke. Some people will cover the whole thing. I'm gonna play as I go. Sealing the cracks around the spoke is absolutely the smartest thing to do. You will see some people using tape over it. The tape is the same material, more or less. And assuming you wait the 24 hours for this to harden correctly, there's not really a benefit to adding the tape. Most important of all, even. I don't think that's working as well as I'd like. I'm going to go a bit quicker, sealing it in an ugly way, and then I'll use the fingers of the glove. Again, if you're doing it where you just seal the head, stick to that. If you're doing it where you kind of coat the whole thing, stick to that, because you're adding weight and you want the weight to be as even as possible. Starting at the valve stem, obviously it doesn't matter where you start because you'll notice there isn't silicone until there is. But I can see the valve stem and know that I am halfway. Also, this is the first video I am ever using a head mount for the camera. Let me know if this is good or bad in the comment section. I would appreciate some feedback. And again, if this doesn't work out, the end screen will pop up a video of fixing it. And if there's any long-term updates, I will pin a comment. Part of the reason I'm taking to the idea of spreading it all over is because when it becomes a solid mass, if I adjust a spoke, I'm not just spinning it free of one sealing point. They'll be mounted to others, so it'll be a much harder space to hopefully just break loose this sticker rather than the whole thing. Two more. Some people will use a credit card to smooth this out because it's smoother than your finger, but this is not a flat edge inside, and these spokes don't sit flush, so that would be very difficult. Make sure you can't see through it and that the spoke head is completely covered. See, there's a hole. The advantage to the tape method is you can put it on and put the rim on immediately and fill it with air. The air pressure will then serve the advantage of sealing it even better. This, you just have to make sure you do it right, and if you mess up, you messed up. I can't say about this specific product because I've never used it before, but with a lot of sealants, they seal slower when you're playing with it. So this is extending my time to get it right. And when I roughed up with the sandpaper, I used 40 grit, the roughest thing I owned. With the Outtex, you want something smooth so the tape can stick. With this, you want it to grip like with paint, but unlike paint, you don't really care how pretty it looks afterwards. So there you go. I just covered that tape on accident. Good thing I put the tape there, otherwise the whole thing is ruined now. Since this dries quickly, it should not be runny or drippy. I'm gonna leave this until it's dry. This is the valve stem, and then I'll cut it out. Feel it actually getting a little tacky already. I definitely didn't use enough tape around the edge because it's going over. One more swoop around the rim. That is where, if it's lumpy on the edge, tire changes will rip at it every time. And I don't think any of us want to make tire changes any more difficult than they have to be. Gloves off inside out, just like you're doing medical work. Clean it with the tape, because if you keep pushing it down, push it down on the tape. You don't want to get too close to the actual project or you end up damaging that. The spoke heads have to be what's airtight, but the edge of the rim is what actually keeps the tire. You will see some people using their fingers to smooth this out. You don't want oil in this. Your fingers have oil, so why would you add extra oil? Gloves are significantly cheaper than everything we have used today. It's already tacky and unworkable. Okay, so it's been almost an hour. It hasn't been an hour, but it doesn't come off on the finger. It's sticky. Everything seems good and solid. It's been almost 3 hours. Let's cut out the valve. Through the power of editing, we are 24 hours in. I checked last night before bed and it got pretty good. Early this morning, around 5 a.m., it was a little sticky. Now it's not sticky at all. It's a little rubbery. It's like with Outtex, I'm going to use tons of bead wax to make sure it slides over this. This little cutout for the tire is probably not good and potentially might be a leak source. That's it. I gotta run to the gas station to use their pump. And we're back from the gas station. It's been 40 minutes. It's holding air. I haven't found any leaks. Now last time, it would leak out huge amounts of air in like 30 minutes. So it's been 40, and let's see, I left it at 230. It is possible that damage to the tire from multiple changes is the issue. Looking back at the tire, you can see here there are two cuts, both this big one and small one. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pop it off the bead while leaving it on the wheel and use this bead sealer. I've used it before when I worked at Yamaha and it works, but these are kind of big cuts, at least one of them is. So we'll see how it goes. The first coat was done and it sat back on the bead. I could hear at this point that exactly where the cut is where there is leaking and bubbling coming out. So there's nothing wrong with what I've done to the rim, and it is the tire that's causing me problems. Now you can see this is the third time I'm popping it off, and I'm coating the actual rim this time so that when I pop it back on the bead, the inside parts that I've done are mostly dry. You're supposed to wait till it's dry, but now I'm making it so the bead squishes against the wheel, hopefully making it a little more airtight. If this doesn't work, I'll have to buy a tire. I'm doing this voiceover recording because it was 6 a.m. in the morning and I didn't want to wake the neighbors. Ignore the irony of using an air compressor. But once I'm done doing this voiceover, I'll go check to see if it's holding air. As you can see, there are no bubbles here anymore. I have fixed the tire. End of good news, because you can see 1, 2 spokes. This is where I keep pulling it off. Obviously that's where the damage was done. So I'm going to pull it off one more time, leave it pulled off for a day or so because I have to fix the sealant, which is not what I wanted. But I did spray every single spoke and there's no leaks. If I had fixed the tire before installing it, we wouldn't be here. If Outtix had worked, we wouldn't be here. Let's get to work. If I put an inner tube in, it would solve the tire problem, but it would ruin the seal of the 4200. Well, that's obviously the issue. 1 and 2, which does beg the question, what's the life expectancy of this entire system? It's clearly peeled up. Step 1 acetone. If this still fails after trying to fix it this time, I am going to take the whole wheel off, peel the whole thing back down, and this time redo the 4200, but this time sealing the strap in place. I don't think the strap will seal that well, but it'll seal enough to protect what's underneath, and couldn't hurt, could it? We will give that about 6 hours, and then I'll just put an immaculate amount of bead wax on it. Seal the rim one last time. I think 6 hours should be enough based on my previous experience, but now we have a reason for why people use Gorilla Tape. Okay, it's been most of the day. It's not sticky. It'll work now or it won't work. Tons of bead wax and then give her a go. It got over without ripping them. I gotta go to the gas station, too far off the bead to get on. It's been 40 minutes since I got back from the gas station. I left it at 2:40. We got 7. That sucks. Well, that's it for this video. I'm going to order a new tire and I am going to redo the seal in a better way since I have to wait for that tire to come. I know there's someone who's going to say this is why you should have gotten the Africa Twin. Honda intentionally didn't give this tubeless, which would have been easy for them, didn't give them cruise, which would have been easy for them, quality suspension, because they want to trick us into buying a more cumbersome, less capable Africa Twin, which I have ridden multiple times. Honda did not make me do that. What this whole experience is making me think is I don't want to buy Japanese bikes anymore because they cheap out and they screw their customers. You have to buy a big bike you don't want or the bike you do want with worse features. But that's my soapbox. I will see you next week when I do a smarter form of tubeless and I waste money on a new tire already. I will take responsibility for screwing up the tire though. Till next time, this has been Kaidu Rider. I have work to do.